Hello, I'm Jenny Fern and welcome to my library. I'm a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. So today I have a video all about short fiction and the short fiction that I cannot stop thinking about that has stuck with me for a long time that I just absolutely adore. This year I'm reading a lot more short fiction, and that is in part because of a behavior change of mine. I have stopped using book tracking apps such as Goodreads, so I get to read whatever I want without any incentive to read a complete book. And so I've been reading a lot more short stories. Sometimes, especially on BookTube, I hear this sentiment about not liking short stories. I've definitely heard it before of like, I don't like short stories because I just want it to be a novel every time that it's like a good short story. Then there's people who just really don't like the format of a short story, like they can't connect to it. Well, I have some opinions on that. One is I think we are not set up to be able to discuss short fiction very well because short stories are so small. You can't really say much about them to an audience and then have them be like, wow, that sounds great, without kind of spoiling the whole thing. So we don't have a ton of people like singing the praises of short stories, I don't think. The other thing is the book tracking apps really motivate people to read entire collections. And sometimes reading a short story collection can be pretty challenging because it's a lot. A short story collection can be, quite a handful of short stories. And if you're trying to read that as if you would read a novel, you are gonna have things run together. You're not gonna give each story enough time to breathe. And so I find it much better to read a short story in a sitting or in 2 sittings and then not roll right into the next one. Like a short story collection is a good thing to bring on while you're reading something else and you have like a spare moment, you could read a short story. And now I have some recommendations of short stories that I didn't read this year. I've read a lot of short stories this year. I don't want to talk about those today, even though I read some excellent collections this year. I'd like to focus on the short fiction that I have read in the past and has really, really stuck with me. And I feel like there's these places in my mind that are so vivid from these short stories. I'm going to start with some classics. One of my favorite short stories that I've ever read, and one of the most impactful for me, comes from this collection of selected short stories of Franz Kafka. So this, of course, has The Metamorphosis in it, which I love The Metamorphosis. It is one of my favorite stories ever. But the short story that is in this collection right after The Metamorphosis is called In the Penal Colony. And it is exactly that. It is a man who is visiting a penal colony. There is this torture device. They are exploring this device in great detail, the mechanisms, how it works. And I loved this. This will stick with me forever. It's stuck with me for several years now. So I'll read the first line, I think, of every short story. "It's a remarkable piece of apparatus," said the officer to the explorer, and surveyed with a certain air of admiration the apparatus which was, after all, quite familiar to him. Oh, so good. It's so good. So if you haven't ever read anything else by Franz Kafka, I really recommend The Penal Colony. In the Penal Colony, it's horrifying, but I loved it. I reread this at the beginning of this year, so I think it will still count as something that I read a long time ago as well. That is Happy Ever After, or Family Happiness, by Leo Tolstoy. This is like a novella to short story. It's like a longer short story / novella. Oh my god. This story, for whatever reason, I love so much. It is about this relationship of an older man and a young woman, and how kind of that age gap and the different states of their life, how that warps their relationship into this kind of like fraught thing. And gosh, I really enjoy it, even though it seems like such a weird topic to read about, or a weird relationship to read about. So the first line: "We were in mourning for my mother, who had died in the autumn, and I spent all that winter alone in the country with Katya and Sonia." Bonus recommendation: The Death of Ivan Ilyich. But I did read that this year, but it was so good. Now let's do some science fiction. Daughters of Earth by Judith Merril is a collection of 3 novellas, or longer short stories. The one that I just have in my mind at all times is Home Calling. A young girl and her brother stranded as orphans on a planet whose inhabitants have the power to take over their minds. I gotta say, this first line is not very good, but maybe I'll read the first 2. Oh god, maybe I will read the first 3. There was no warning. Deborah heard her mother shout, "Dee, grab the baby." Petey's limbs hung loose. His pink young mouth fell open as he bounced off the foam-padded floor of the play space, hit more foam on the sidewall at a neat 90-degree angle, and bounced once more. Highly recommend this if you're into science fiction. Then, another science fiction recommendation from the great Ray Bradbury. So this will be from the Martian Chronicles, which has been novelized, but is also a series of short stories that have been put together to tell a single story. But it might be the last chapter of this book, was something that I first read as a standalone short story. And oh my god, this is so good. There Will Come Soft Rains. And it's about this house that is like a smart home that is continuing on with its processes with nobody living inside. In the living room, the voice clock sang, "Tick tock, 7 o'clock, time to get up, 7 o'clock," as if it were afraid that nobody would. So good. Genuinely one of the most impactful short stories I've ever read. I have another Ray Bradbury. From The Illustrated Man. The story that has stuck with me the most is The Veldt, which is the first short story in this. "George, I wish you'd look at the nursery." "What's wrong with it?" "I don't know." "Well then, I just want you to look at it, is all. Or call a psychologist in to look at it." "What would a psychologist want with a nursery?" It is about this really cool technology. It's like wallpaper or like a screen that moves, and the kids are like really into this like savannah scene, and that there's like these lions, and like it's like this vibe of being hunted down by this nursery wallpaper. Very, very cool. And now we have the woman who has really changed for me my whole conception of what a short story can be, and that is Karen Russell. So first I'll go through Vampires in the Lemon Grove by Karen Russell. The short story that has stuck with me the most from this collection is The New Veterans. And this is about like a massage therapist who is helping this veteran who has this depiction of like a war scene tattooed on his back. It's incredibly impactful. While I was reading it, I was so uncomfortable, but it really just stuck in my brain so much. When Beverly enters the room, the first thing she notices is her new patient's tattoo. Highly recommend Karen Russell's short stories. They are so good. From Orange World, I've read this more recently, and I adored this collection. I have several short stories from here that have stuck with me quite a lot. it was a wonderful, brilliant experience. The first one that I think has stuck with me the most in like a weird way, like I see it a lot in my mind, is The Gondoliers. This is the second to last story in here, and gosh, I can't even really remember like the plot of this thing, but it's about like if Florida were flooded in the future with ocean water, and there were these people who scoot around on boats and like transport people around. It's got this like post-apocalyptic vibe, and there's also like some little magic elements. Dr. Glim was supposed to be my last fare of the evening, but when I am a quarter mile from home, I hear a man coughing on South Jetty, and against my better judgment, I am drawn down the foamy water of a side canal towards the rattling sound. I also really have the Bog Girl, a romance, in my brain forever. There is this song, The Bog Body. Every time I hear it, I think of this story. So I've been thinking about this story a lot because I've been listening to that album a lot. It's a very good album if you're into that kind of thing. Bog Girl, a romance. The young turf cutter fell hard for his first girlfriend while operating heavy machinery in the peatlands. I mean, I felt like I didn't have to explain what Bog Girl, a romance was about, because that's what it's about. It's about a man who falls in love with a bog girl, which is like a preserved, mummified body in the bogs in Ireland. And then The Bad Graft. The Bad Graft is about a woman who, her and her boyfriend, I think, visit Joshua Tree National Park, and she like becomes very attached to the Joshua trees and very like rooted in being in this area, being with the Joshua trees. So that's The Bad Graft. The land looked flattened as if by a rolling pin. All aspects, all directions. So those are all of the short stories that I have in books, in collections. And I do have one that I just cannot forget about. And I tried to look it up, and now I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is what it was actually called. I don't know what publication it was in. But there is this short story that I read, and I have no record of it. I don't know. I like record my short stories in a spreadsheet that I read from literary journals, but this must have been before I did that. I don't know. I thought it was called Ore Bones, and it was so impactful to me. There's like this very big lake, and there are these people who row the boats who have these large, like instead of arms, or in addition to arms, I can't quite remember, they have oars as their limbs, and they row the boats across. And it's like has a little bit to do with like growing into this trade and growing out of this trade, and I cannot get that out of my mind. And I wanted to reread it, and I cannot find this story. I really thought it was called Ore Bones, but when I search it up, I can't find anything about it. If you perchance know what I'm talking about, let me know. I do have some other short stories that I don't really remember super vividly, but I did note out as having loved reading them. Those are from literary journals, and I'll just quickly mention those in case you want to look them up as well. There was a story called I'm Your Venus by Whitney Collins in the Greensboro Review. And then I also evidently loved The Hydrangea Fairy by Mialis Carney in Alien Magazine. This one I do remember just because of how unique the formatting was. It was called Catharsis as 2005 USAMO Problem Set by Charisse Kong. Really, really enjoyed that. So these were all stories that I was reading in the winter of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 when I was first starting to try to get published. still not published. Loved those. So I had to shout them out even if I don't remember them extremely well. Short fiction is amazing. We should give it its credit even if it is hard to talk about on BookTube. I hope you enjoyed this. I sure did. I love short fiction. I think it can be extremely impactful and such a way to absorb a lot of different places and feelings and times and ideas in like a little bite. Just shoot it straight from the author into my brain and then I have their vision. So that's how I kind of feel sometimes. Please, in the comments, let me know what are your favorite short stories, either from collections or if they're a novella. Let me know. I would love to hear about it. Anyway, if you did enjoy this, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think would also enjoy it. Consider liking and subscribing, and I will be back again soon.